guys. Hi. We are back reading Aeschylus, reading your Agamemnon, part of the Oresteia, and we are on page 108, and we are on line 157. So if you have a look at your book, what you'll find is along the right-hand side, you'll see that they've got numbers, and those numbers refer to what line you're on. So if I say we are on page 108 and we are line 157, you would just find the closest number to that, so that's 155, right down the bottom. So you pick that and then just count two more and then you're at 157. Easy. Alright, so let's read. So we were just learning, so we've got the chorus speaking right now, and they do a lot of speaking, particularly at the start, because their whole job is to kind of like set up like what the background is and stuff like that. So particularly at the start, you hear them speaking a lot in pretty much all Greek plays. So they begin. And basically so far what we've got is a bit of a rundown to why Agamemnon went to Troy to fight the Trojan War. And we got a bit of a rundown, we got a hint of what has happened to Clytemnestra and Agamemnon's only child, who Agamemnon agreed to sacrifice in order to get the wind to blow in a certain way that they could get the ships to go to Troy and fight at Troy. So basically he sacrificed his daughter in order to go and fight in a war. And just before we left off, we got a description of Clytemnestra from the chorus, and it's very much like a forewarning for us. And basically it says, the architect of vengeance growing strong in the house, with no fear of the husband, here she waits. The terror raging back and back in the future, the stealth, the law of the hearth, the mother, memory womb of fury, child avenging fury. So we are already supposed to kind of be suspecting that Clytemnestra is going to want to rage some sort of revenge on Agamemnon for what he chose to do to their child. Okay, so let's keep going. So as the eagles wheeled at the crossroads, Calcalus clashed out the great good blessings mixed with doom for all the halls of kings, and singing with our fate, we cry for death, but good win out in glory in the end. Zeus, great nameless all in all, that if that name will gain his favour, I will call him Zeus. I have no other words to do him justice. Weighing all in the balance, all I have is Zeus, Zeus. Lift this weight, this torment from my spirit, cast it once for all. He who was so mighty once, storming for the wars of heaven, he has had his day. And then his son who came to power met his match on the third fall, and he is gone. Zeus, Zeus, raise your cries and sing him, Zeus the victor, you will reach the truth. Zeus has led us on to know, the helmsman lays it down as law, that we must suffer into truth. We cannot sleep, drop by drop at the heart. Pain of pain remembered comes again, and we resist, but ripeness comes as well. For gods enthroned on awesome rowing bench, there comes a violent love. So it was the day the king, the steersman of the helm of Greece, would never blame the word the prophet said, swept away by the wrenching winds of fortune he conspired. Weather-bound, we could not sail, our stores exhausted, finding strength hard-pressed, and squadrons rose in the shallow chackies where riptide crashes drags, and winds from north pinned down our hulls at Aulis, port of anguish, headwinds starving, sheets and cabled snapped, and men's minds strayed, the pride, the bloom of Greece, was raped as time ground down, and then for the cure of the storm, it was harsher. Calchas cried, "My captains, Artemis must have blood." So harsh the sons of Atreus dashed their sepulchres on rocks and could not hold back tears. I still can hear the older warlord crying, "Obey, obey, or a heavy doom will crush me. Oh, but doom will crush me. Once I rend my child, the glory of my house. A father's hands are stained. Blood of a young girl streaks the altar. Pain both ways, and what is worse? Desert the fleets? Fail the alliance? No, but stop the winds with a virgin's blood. Feed their lust, their fury, feed their fury. Law is law, let all go well." And once he slipped his neck in the strap of fate, his spirit veering black, impure, unholy. Once he turned, he stopped at nothing, seized with the frenzy, blinding, driving to outrage, wrenched fury, cause of all our grief. Yes, he had the heart to sacrifice his daughter, to bless the war that avenged a woman's loss, a bridal rite that sped the men of war. "My father, father," she might pray to the winds. No innocent moves her judges mad for war. Her father called his henchmen on with a prayer. "Hoist her over the altar, like a yearling, give it all your strength. She's fainting, lift her, sweep her robes around her, but slip this strap in her gentle curving lips. Here, gag her hard, a sound will curse the house." And the bridal chokes her voice, her saffron robes pouring over the sand, her glance like arrows showering, wounding every murderer through with pity. Clear as a picture, live, she strains to call their names. I remember often the days with father's guests, when over the feast her voice unbroken, pure as the hymn, her loving father, bearing third libations, sang to saving Zeus, transfixed with joy, Atreus' offspring throbbing out their love. What comes next? I cannot see it, cannot say. The strong techniques of Calchas do their work, but justice turns the balanced scales, sees what we suffer, and we suffer and learn. And we will know the future soon. We will know the future when it comes. Greet it too early, weep too soon. It all comes clear in the light of day. Let all go well today, as well as she could want. Our midnight watch, our lone defender, single-minded queen. All right, so let's talk about that. That was pretty intense. So if we go back, if you skip a little bit back to 109. So 109 is all about telling the story of the death of Clytemnestra's daughter. And it's about, and so it starts with that they're trying to hoist the ships and get the ships going. The wind is blowing the wrong way, and it's blowing really hard and almost making it impossible for them to set out. They can't go anywhere because the wind is like pinning down their ships, and so they're stuck, and they're all kind of in this crisis where it's like, we have to go. We have said that we're going to go. We've promised Menelaus, and it's part of our treaty, and it's part of our role as men to go and do this, and they can't seem to get their ships to go, and the men cry. This is on page 110, on line 201. So you might want to underline this. It says, "My captains, Artemis must have blood." So that's kind of like the first time that they realize that they need to sacrifice someone to Artemis in order for their boats to get the right wind to go. And then we have, excuse me, and then we have some talk about the sacrifice, and it says, once, and we assume that this is what Agamemnon said. It says, "Once I rend my child, the glory of my house, a father's hands are stained, the blood of a young girl streaks the altar, pain both ways. But what is worse? Desert the fleets? Fail the alliance? No. But stop with the winds with a virgin's blood, feed their lust, their fury, feed their fury. Law is law. Let all go well." So Agamemnon decides that in order to maintain his alliance, to not have to desert his ships, to stand by his men, and stand by his alliance to his brother, he decides that this is what I'm going to have to do. Even though he doesn't want to do it, he says, she's the glory of his house. This is his only child. And so, he says, I can't do it, no, but stop the winds with a virgin's blood and feed their lust and feed their fury, as in feed the gods' lust and fury. Law is law. So he decides to do it. And then on to 17, 18, 19, I guess it would be 19. No, it doesn't seem to be. Let's go with 220, 219, 218, 217. Let's say 217, where it says, "And once he slipped his neck on the strap of fate." So they're saying that this was part of Agamemnon's destiny, that he had to do it. There was no choice. That they're calling it that, he had to burden this fate, slip it over his neck and carry it, that this was his burden of fate. His spirit veering, black, impure, and unholy. Once he turned, he stopped at nothing. So once he'd made that choice that his daughter had to die, he would stop at nothing, that he was just single-minded about it. Let's just do it. Let's just do it. And then you get this really sad description about he had the heart to sacrifice his daughter. Interesting discussion there, that they kind of see him like that he's kind of the victim of fate here, rather than thinking of him as a horrible person who killed his daughter. Instead, they picture him as this guy who made a huge sacrifice for his people, which is really interesting, just a very different viewpoint. And so I'd underline that where it says, yes, he had, so that's on that's on line 20, 21, 22, 23, on 23, line 223. Yes, he had the heart to sacrifice his daughter, to bless the war that avenged a woman's loss. So I'd underline that. And then on page 111 is really awful, not bad, but really really moving description of her death. And it's, Father, Father, she might pray to the winds. So she's yelling out for her dad to save her, but Her dad's actually the one that's doing it. And then he yells to the henchman, hoist her over over the altar. So put her up on the altar, like a yearling, like a sheep for sacrifice. Give it all your strength, and then we get this description of like sweep her robes around her, but and then gag her, which is like put something in her mouth so she can't curse them for doing this. And then, her saffron rose pouring over the sand, the bridle chokes her voice. And I love this line on 239. Her glance like arrows showering, wounding every murderer through the pity as clear as a picture, live. She strains to call their names. So she didn't know that they were going to kill her, and all of a sudden this is happening, and it's people that she knows and loves that are killing her. So it's just this horrific picture of what's happened to her, as a result of this need to go to war. So they're kind of saying by the end of 111, they're saying, but justice has seen, has seen to kind of balance the scales. It's seen that we suffer and we learn, so that the chorus is hoping that, the pain and suffering that that these people, the people of Argos have been through, they're hoping that will be repaid. Through winning the Trojan War. Okay, so then they turn to Clytemnestra, and they describe her very interestingly. They call her our midnight watch, our lone defender, single-minded queen. So even though before they kind of described her as this vengeful person, they also realize that she's still the queen. She's still their leader at this stage, their lone defender. And that she's looked after them for this 10 years that Agamemnon's been gone. Okay, so the leader says, so this one guy from the chorus kind of steps out, and he's the leader. And he says, "We've come, Clytemnestra, we respect your power. Right it is to honour the warlord's woman once he leaves the throne. But why these fires? Good news? Or more good hopes? We're loyal, we want to hear, but never blame your silence." So they're asking her, what's the deal? You're lighting all these altar fires. What's going on? Are you saying that we've won? I don't know, because they haven't received the news yet. Only Clytemnestra has. So Clytemnestra says, "Let the new day shine, as the proverb says, glorious from the womb of Mother Night." And then the stage direction is lost in prayer. So she's praying, and then she turns to the chorus. She says, "You will hear a joy beyond your hopes. Priam's citadel. The Greeks have taken Troy." So that's her announcement that they've won Troy. So that's probably worth underlining. Then the leader says, "No. What do you mean? I can't believe it." Clytemnestra replies, "Troy is ours. Is that clear enough?" The leader responds, "The joy of it, stealing over me, calling up my tears." Clytemnestra replies, "Yes, your eyes expose your loyal hearts." Leader, "And you have proof?" So he's like, "Are you sure? Are you sure this is true?" And Clytemnestra says, "I do. I must, unless the god is lying." Leader, "That or a phantom spirit sends you into raptures." Clytemnestra says, "No one takes me in with visions, senseless dreams." Or giddy rumour, you haven't indulged yourself. And then Clytemnestra gets angry because the leader is kind of continuing to question her, and she's like, "Mate, I said it's the truth." And she says, "You treat me like a child, you mock me." Leader says, "And then when did they storm the city?" Clytemnestra replies, "Last night, I say, the mother of this morning." So that's the thing, with the horse. So like how they hid inside the Trojan horse. So then they came out in the morning and leader. And who on earth could run the news so fast? So they're still like, but how do you know this? How are you sure? Then Clytemnestra says, the god of fire, rushing fire from Ida. That's the beacon. The beacon to beacon rushes it onto me. My couriers riding home the torch from Troy to the bare rock of Lemnos, Hermes' spur, and the escort winged its great light west to the saving father's face. Mount Athos hurled it, third from in the chain, and leaping over ocean's back, the blaze went on to dance to ecstasy. Pitch pine, streaming gold like a newborn sun, and then brought the word in flame to Mount Machistos' brow. No time to waste, straining or finding sleep. That lookout heaved a torch glowing over the murderous straits of Europos? To reach over the Messapians, watchmen's craning for a signal. Fire for the word of fire. Tense with the heather, withered grey, they stacked it, set it ablaze. Hot force of the beacon never flags. It springs the plain of Aesop, rears like a harvest moon to hit Curathyon's crest that drives new men to drive the fire on. That relay pants from far-flung torch, they swell, its strength outstripping my commands, and the light inflames the marsh, the Gorgon's eyes. It strikes the peak where the wild goats range. My laws, my fire whips that camp. They spare nothing, eager to build its nest, and a huge beard of flame overcomes the headland, beetling down the Saronic Gulf, and the flaring south it brings down the Black Widow's face, the watch that looms above your heads, and now the true sun of the burning flanks of Ida crashes on the roofs of Atreus' sons. I ordained it all, torch to torch, running for their lives, one succession racing home my fire. One, first in the lapse and last, wins out in triumph. There you have my proof, my burning sign, I tell you, the power of my Lord passed on from Troy to me. Basically, that was a really long-winded way of saying I had a whole bunch of fires lit as signals, and they have signaled, and so I know that it's true. So, all right. Leader. Well, thank the gods, my lady. First this story. Let me lose myself in the wonder of it all. Let me tell it from start to finish. Tell us it all. So they want to know the story. How is it that they won? Clytemnestra says, the city is ours, in our hands this very day. I can hear the cries in the crossfire rock the walls. Pour oil and wine in the same bowl. What have you? Friendship? A struggle to the end. So with the victors and victims, outcries. You can hear them clashing like their fates. They are kneeling by the bodies of the dead, embracing men and brothers, infants over the aged loins that gave them life, and sobbing as the yoke constricts their last free breath for every dear one lost. And the others, there plunging breakneck through the night, the labours of battles that sets them down ravenous to breakfast on the last remains of Troy. Not by rank, but chance, by the lots they draw. They lodge in the houses captured by the spear, settling in so soon, released from the open sky, the frost and dew. Lucky men, off guard at last, they sleep away their first good night in years. If If only they are revering the city's gods, the shrines of the gods who love the conquered land. No plunderer will be plundered in return. Just let no lust, no mad desires seize the armies to ravage what they must not touch, overwhelmed by all they've won. The run for home and safety awaits, the swerve at the post, the final lap of the grueling 2-lap race. And even if the men come back with no offence to the gods, the avenging dead may never rest. Oh, let no new disaster strike. And here you have it, what a woman has to say. Let the best win out, clear to see, a small desire, but all that I could want. So basically she is now talking about like that, okay, so now that they've won, they're going to come home, but she hopes that when they are there, kind of reaping the benefits of their winnings, that, that they behave in a gentlemanly-like way, that they don't just kind of plunder and ruin the city, because, they'll offend the gods and they'll offend, their own sense of self. So she's hoping that they, don't just kind of act like animals when they're there. Leader says, spoken like a man, my lady, loyal, full of self-command. I've heard your sign and your vision now. The leader then reaching towards her as she turns and re-enters the palace. Now to praise the gods, the joy is worth the labour. So now it comes back to the chorus, and they say, O Zeus, my king and knight, dear knight, queen of the house that covers us in glories, you slung your net over the towers of Troy, neither young nor strong could leap, a giant dredge net of slavery, or all-embracing ruin. I adore you, iron Zeus of the guests, and your revenge. You drew your longbow year by year to a taut, full draw, till one bolt, not falling short or arching over the stars, could split the mark of Paris. The sky stroke of God, it is all Troy's to tell. But even I can trace it to its cause. A god does as a god decrees. And some say that heaven would never stoop to punish men who trample the lovely grace of things untouchable. How wrong they were. A curse burns bright on a crime. Full blown, a father's crimes will blossom, burst into the suns. Let there be less suffering. Give us the sense to live on what we need. Bastions of wealth are no defence for the man who treads the grand altar of justice down and out of sight. Okay, so they're saying so they're praising Zeus for supporting them through the war and ultimately letting them win, letting Agamemnon's troops win, the people of Argos win. But they're saying that, they need to be careful now with the way that they behave as winners of the war, and not to go too mad on trying to wreak havoc there. Like he says, and still some say that heavens, this is on line 374, and still some say that heaven would never stoop to punish men who trample the lovely grace of things untouchable. How wrong they are. A curse burns bright on crime, full blown. The father's crimes will blossom and burst into the suns. Let there be less suffering. Give us the sense to live on what we need. They're trying to plead with the people who went there, or hope that the people the warriors that they sent there are going to behave in a way that is respectable. Because otherwise they'll be punished by the gods. So turning over the page. Persuasion, maddening child of ruin, overpowers him. Ruin plans it all, and the wound will smoulder on. There is no cure. A terrible brilliance kindles on the night. He is bad bronze, scraped on a touchstone, put to the test. The man goes black. Like the boy who chases a bird on a wing, brands his city, brings it down and prays, but the gods are deaf. To the one who turns to the crime, they tear him down. And so Paris learned when he came to Atreus' house and shamed the tables spread for the guests, and he stole away the queen. And she left her land chaos, clanging shields, companions trampling, bronze prows, men in bronze, and she came to Troy with a dowry, death, strode through the gates, defiant in every stride, as prophets of the house looked on and wept. Oh, the halls and lords of war, the bed and fresh prince of love. I see him, unavenging, unavenged, the stun of his desolation so clear. He longs for the one who lies across the sea until her phantom seems to sway the house. Her curving images, her beauty hurts her lord, the eyes starve, and the touch of love is gone. The radiant dreams are passing in the night, the memories throb with sorrow, joy with pain. It is pain to dream, and seize desires slip through the arms, a vision lost forever, winging down to moving drifts of sleep. So he grieves at the royal hearth, yet others' grief is worse, far worse. All through Greece, for those who flock to war, are holding back the anguish now. You can feel it rising now in every house. I tell you, there is too much to tear the heart. They knew the men they sent, but now in place of men, ashes and urns come back to every hearth. War, war, the great gold broker of corpses holds the balance of the battle on his spear. Home from the pyres he sends them, home from Troy to the loved ones, heavy with tears, urns brimmed full. The heroes return in gold dust, dear, light ash for men, they weep. They praise him. He had skill in the sword play. He went down so tall on the onslaught. All for another's woman. And so they mutter in secret, and rancor steals towards our staunch defenders, Atreus' sons. All right, I just want to pause there. So what's been talked about so far is on 118 they're talking about Helen's abandonment of the men of Troy, and that Helen, and so that Paris came in, Paris, the guy who steals Menelaus' wife, he stole her away while he was supposed to be a guest in the house, and he stole Menelaus' wife, and Menelaus was devastated and grieving, and that her curving images, her beauty hurts her lord, the eyes starve and the touch of love is gone, a vision lost forever. And then on 119, so he grieves at the royal hearth, yet others' grief is worse, far worse. So, that they're talking about that, Menelaus was devastated and felt that he needed to go and get revenge. But now they're acknowledging that, but others' grief is far, far worse. And so what they're doing is they're actually acknowledging that, all of these men, these young men have gone and fought and died for what? For one chick, one girl that, legged it with this guy. Like, was that wise? Was that smart? So what's worth kind of underlining is, where is it? So starting from 428, where it says, where others' grief is worse, far worse. All through Greece, for those who flock to war, they are holding back the anguish now. You can feel it rising in every house. I tell you, there is much to tear the heart. So now what the chorus are doing is they're talking about the losses that that the people of Argos have suffered as a result of this Trojan War. Like, you can imagine, like 10 years of fighting, you know, they've lost a lot of men, a lot of young men. And so they're talking about, well, yeah, okay, he lost his wife, but like we've lost so many sons of Argos. You know, and, you know, it says, so I just wrote next to that, the people of Greece's, or the people of Argos's grief is worse than that of Menelaus's, that they have suffered more than Menelaus, which is true. They knew the men they sent, but now in the place of men, ashes and urns come back to every heart. So he's saying, so the chorus is now saying, like, you know, they sent off men, and what they're getting back is bodies. They're getting the ashes of their sons and their fathers. You know, which is really sad. You know, it says, home from the pyres he sends them, home from Troy to the loved ones, heavy with tears, the urns brimmed full. You know, that all their urns are full of you know, the bodies of their young men. And, you know, it talks about the kind of men they lost. You know, like, he had skill in the sword play. He went down so tall in the onslaught. And then the last one I think is interesting, all for another's woman. You know, this is what it was for. Like, was it worth it? I think he's encouraging the audience, or the chorus is encouraging the audience to question whether this was a good idea, whether this was worth it. So they mutter in secret, and the rancor steals towards our staunch defenders, Atreus' son. So the chorus is admitting that there is, you know, dissent in the ranks. People are mad because they sent their sons to fight in a war and they died, and they're like, was it worth it? Which, you know, fair cop, I would say. So, you know, that's worth noting, that they are encouraging us to question whether what they fought for was right. And they ring the walls. Sorry, I'm going back to reading now. They ring the walls. I'm on just under 445. And there they ring the walls, the young, the lithe, the handsome holds the grave, they won in Troy. The enemy earth rides over those who conquer. The people's voice is heavy with hatred, and the curse of the people must be paid. And now I wait, I listen. There is something breathing under that night's shroud. God, take aim at the ones who murder many. The swarthy furies stalk the man, gone rich beyond all rights. With a twist of fortune grinds him down, dissolve him into the blurring dead. There is no help. The reach for power can recoil. The bolt of a god can strike you at a glance. Make me rich with no man's envy, neither a raider of cities, no, nor a slave come face to face with life to overpower by another. All right, I just want to pause there. So he is saying, like, you know, the people are angry at what happened. So it'd be really worth underlining just at the top of page 120, the people's voice is heavy with hatred. Now the curses of the people must be paid. Now I wait, I listen. So he feels like, yeah, that there is people that are feeling very unsettled, very angry. So yeah. All right, so we're going to leave it there. So that is we are stopping on just under 460. Have a look at the questions in the class task. Make sure you get those done, and upload them into your assignment, and I will make sure that you have done them. And I'll see you later, alligators. Be good. All right, bye.